You Aren't What You Drive. This is Chapter 4, of the Millionaire Next Door book. Welcome back, my lovely friends. Today we are going to read Chapter 4, You Aren't What You Drive. Before we start, please don't forget to subscribe to our channel, and comment below which book should we read next. Now let's get started. They believe that financial independence is more important than displaying high social status. Mr. Allen is a self-made multimillionaire. He and his wife have lived in the same three-bedroom house in the same middle-class neighborhood for nearly 40 years. Mr. Allen owns and manages two manufacturing businesses in the Midwest. During his entire married life, he has owned only full-sized General Motors sedans. He will tell you that he never burdened himself with status vehicles or products of any kind. Mr. Allen's businesses, as well as his household, are highly efficient operations. The productivity of his businesses, coupled with his household's moderate consumption habits, produced many surplus dollars. These, in turn, were reinvested in his businesses, commercial real estate, and the common stocks of a variety of high-quality American corporations. Mr. Allen is what we call a super paw. His net worth exceeds the expected value for people in his income age category by more than tenfold. During the course of his career, Mr. Allen has helped many other entrepreneurs. He has acted as a mentor to dozens of business owners and has saved many businesses from going under by giving financial assistance to struggling entrepreneurs. But he never extended credit to people who exhibited the big hat no cattle philosophy. In his mind, such people would never be able to repay their debts. These types, according to Mr. Allen, spend, in anticipation of having money before they even earn it. Mr. Allen, as well as those people whom he has backed financially, have never felt that their purpose in life was to look wealthy. According to Mr. Allen, that's why I'm financially independent. If your goal is to become financially secure, you will likely attain it. But if your motive is to make money to spend money on the good life, you're never gonna make it. Many people who never achieve financial independence have a much different set of beliefs. When we ask them about their motives, they speak in terms of work and career. But ask them why they work so hard, why they selected the careers they did, and their answers are much different from Mr. Allen's. They are laws, and UAWs, especially high-income producers, work to spend, not to achieve or become financially independent. UAWs view life as a series of trade-ups from one level of luxury to the next. So who enjoys working? Who really gets satisfaction from their careers, PAWs or UAWs? In most of the cases we have examined, PAWs love working, while a large proportion of UAWs work because they need to support their conspicuous consumption habit. Such people and their motives offend Mr. Allen. He stated numerous times, money should never change one's values. Making money is only a report card. It's a way to tell how you're doing. Mr. Allen is extremely perceptive in his understanding of under-accumulators of wealth. In essence, he feels that products change people. If you acquire one status product, you will likely have to purchase others to fill up the socially conspicuous puzzle. Before long, your entire lifestyle will have changed. Mr. Allen clearly understands the complementary nature of status products and a high-consumption lifestyle. He will have none of these artifacts. They are a threat, as he sees it, to his rather simple yet highly efficient lifestyle. Building wealth is not something that will change your lifestyle. Even at this stage of life, I don't want to change the way I live. Mr. Allen's values and priorities were recently tested. Several of those people whom Mr. Allen helped stay in business decided to purchase a special birthday gift for him. What a nice gesture, they thought. But status gifts, whether from friends or rich parents, are not always congruent with the recipient's values and lifestyle. And often such gifts place tremendous pressure on the recipients to spend more and more of their income to fill in the picture. Some wealthy parents buy their adult children homes in affluent neighborhoods. Great idea? Perhaps they should realize that affluent neighborhoods are high-consumption neighborhoods. From property taxes to the pressure to decorate, From the perceived need to send their children to expensive private schools to the $40,000 four-wheel drive luxury Suburban, the children are now on the earn-to-spend treadmill. Thanks, Mom and Dad. As Mr. Allen, the superpaw, told us. Something interesting recently happened. I discovered I was to be given a surprise present, from several close business associates. A Rolls-Royce for a present. It was ordered for me, special color, special interior. They ordered it about 4 months before. I found out about it, still had about 5 months before delivery. How do you go and tell somebody who wants to give you a Rolls-Royce that you don't want it? Why did Mr. Allen refuse to accept such a marvelous gift? There's nothing the Rolls-Royce represents that's important in my life. Nor would I want to have to change my life to go along with owning the Rolls. I can't throw fish in the back seat of the Rolls like I do right now when I go fishing. I'm gonna have to get you all to the lake. I'm out fishing here every weekend. We have some of the best freshwater fishing in the country. Right out here, where I keep my fishing boat. Mr. Allen's type of fishing includes throwing bloody fish in the back seat of his 4-year-old, full-sized, American-made, non-luxury vehicle. But such behavior is incongruent with driving a Rolls-Royce down to the lake. It would be out of place. Mr. Allen would not feel comfortable with such a vehicle. Thus, he contended, he had to change his behavior by ceasing to fish or refuse the gift. Let's consider Mr. Allen's dilemma further. His office is located in his manufacturing plant, which is in an old industrial area. An automobile like the one being offered might well be out of place in such an environment. And, of course, Mr. Allen does not want to operate 2 vehicles. That would be inefficient. Mr. Allen also feels that a luxury car would alienate many of his workers. They might get the feeling that their boss was exploiting them. How else could he afford such an expensive vehicle? There are other considerations as well. With Rolls, I can't go to some of the crummy restaurants I enjoy going to, can't drive up in a Rolls-Royce. So, no, thank you. And so I had to call and say, I really got to tell you something. That I don't want it. It's totally unimportant. There are some things that are more fun to do, more interesting to do, than owning a Rolls. Mr. Allen recognizes that many status artifacts can be a burden, if not an impediment, to becoming financially independent. Life has its own burdens. Why add excess baggage? How do millionaires go about acquiring motor vehicles? About 81% purchase their vehicles. The balance lease. Only 23.5% of millionaires own new cars. Most have not purchased a car in the last 2 years. In fact, 25.2% have not purchased a motor vehicle in 4 or more years. How much do millionaires pay for these vehicles? The typical millionaire, those in the 50th percentile, paid $24,800 for his most recent acquisition. Note that 30% spent $19,500 or less. Also, note that the average American buyer of a new motor vehicle paid more than $21,000 for his most recent acquisition. This is not much less than the $24,800 paid by millionaires. Moreover, not all of these millionaires purchased new vehicles. How many indicated that their most recent vehicle was used? Nearly 37%. In addition, many millionaires indicated that they traded down recently, that is, purchased lower-priced vehicles than they had before. What are the most that these millionaires ever paid for their motor vehicles? 50% of the millionaires we surveyed never spent more than $29,000 in their entire lives on a motor vehicle. About 1 in 5, or 20%, never spent more than $19,950. 80% paid $41,300 or less to acquire their most expensive motor vehicle. What if we separate out from our sample those millionaires who told us they had inherited their wealth? Nearly 14% of the millionaires in our sample. The typical wealthy inheritor spent in excess of $36,000 for his most expensive motor vehicle. In sharp contrast, The typical self-made millionaire paid much less, approximately $27,000, or almost $9,000 less than millionaires who inherited their wealth. Thus, the typical American buyer of a new motor vehicle today spends about 78% of what the typical self-made millionaire does for his most expensive motor vehicle. You can look at all of this another way. The typical millionaire in our survey, one in the 50th percentile, spent about $29,000 for his most expensive motor vehicle. This equates to less than 1% of his net worth. The average buyer of a motor vehicle in America has a net worth that is less than 2% of that of these millionaires. Do they buy motor vehicles that cost 2% of what millionaires pay? If they did, they would spend, on average, about $580, 2% of $29,000. Instead, typical motor vehicle buyers spend the equivalent of at least 30% of their net worth for such purchases. Note also that, on average, American consumers buy new motor vehicles at a price that is 72% of the most that a typical millionaire ever spent on a motor vehicle. Does this give you some idea of why so few Americans are millionaires? Those millionaires who lease vehicles are a minority, fewer than 20%. What was the price of their most recent acquisition lease? We estimate that 50% leased vehicles that were priced at $31,680 or less. About 80% leased vehicles valued at or under $44,500. People often ask us, should I lease? Our answer is always the same: more than 80% of millionaires purchase their vehicles. If and when more than 50% begin leasing, we will change our recommendation. What types of motor vehicles do millionaires drive? U.S. car manufacturers may be pleased to note that their makes account for 57.7% of the vehicles millionaires are driving. Japanese makes account for 23.5%, while European manufacturers hold 18.8%. What makes cars are most popular with millionaires? The following are listed in rank order according to their respective market shares. 1. Ford, 9.4%. The most popular models include the F-150 pickup and the Explorer sports utility vehicle. American sports utility vehicles, in general, are becoming increasingly popular with the affluent. About 3 in 10 millionaire Ford drivers own F-150 pickups. About 1 in 4 drive Ford Explorers. Note that the F-150 pickup is the #1 vehicle sold in America. Thus, drivers of pickups have something in common with many millionaires. 2. Cadillac, 8.8%. More than 60% of Cadillac owners drive the DeVille/Fleetwood Brougham. 3. Lincoln, 7.8%. About half have Lincoln Town cars. 4. A three-way tie, Jeep, Lexus, Mercedes, 6.4% each. Almost all millionaires who own Jeeps choose the Grand Cherokee Sports Utility model. In fact, this model ranks first among all models owned by millionaires. Nearly 2/3 of Lexus drivers choose the LS400 model. The favorite model of Mercedes-Benz is the S-Class. 5. Oldsmobile, 5.9%. The overall favorite model is the Olds 98. 6. Chevrolet, 5.6%. 10 different models are represented. The most popular include the Suburban and the Blazer sports utility vehicles. 7. Toyota, 5.1%. The Camry model accounts for more than half of this segment. 8. Buick, 4.3%. The LeSabre and Park Avenue models were found to be most popular. 9. A two-way tie, Nissan and Volvo, 2.9% each. The most popular Nissan is the Pathfinder sports utility vehicle. For Volvo, it is the 200 series. 10. A two-way tie, Chrysler, Jaguar, 2.7% each. Other popular makes include Dodge, BMW, Mazda, Saab, Infiniti, Mercury, Acura, Honda, GMC, Volkswagen, Land Rover, Subaru, Pontiac, Audi, Isuzu, Plymouth, and Mitsubishi. The top 3 manufacturers are General Motors Corporation, With approximately 26.7% of the millionaire population, Ford Motor Company, with 19.1%, and Chrysler, with about 11.8%. As you can see, most millionaires are driving so-called Detroit metal. Most Americans who own motor vehicles also drive Detroit metal. How then can you tell if your neighbor who is driving a Ford, a Cadillac, or a Jeep is a millionaire or not? You can't. It's not easy to judge the wealth characteristics of people by the motor vehicles they drive. An increasing number of affluent people are purchasing vehicles produced by American manufacturers, especially Buicks, Cadillacs, Chevrolets, Chryslers, Fords, Lincolns, and Oldsmobiles. This trend is related to the growing popularity of sports utility vehicles produced by Chrysler, Ford, and General Motors. What is it about Detroit metal that appeals to the wealthy? We can answer that question by reflecting on something that took place more than 15 years ago. After interviewing a group of 10 millionaires, we walked into the parking lot of the research facility. We were very surprised to see that almost all of the millionaires we had just interviewed were driving full-size Detroit metal, including Buicks, Fords, and Oldsmobiles. We looked at each other. One said, "These people are not into status, they buy automobiles by the pound." It's true. Many American millionaires have a propensity to purchase full-sized automobiles that have a low cost per pound. The average per-pound price for all new motor vehicles is $6.86. The full-sized Buick four-door sedan currently sells for less than $6 a pound, the Chevrolet Caprice, about $5.27 per pound, the Ford Crown Victoria, about $5.50, the Lincoln Town Car, less than $10 a pound, and the Cadillac Fleetwood, $8.26 a pound. The Ford Explorer sells for about $5.98 a pound. The most popular model among millionaires is the Jeep Grand Cherokee, which sells for $7.09 per pound. How do these costs per pound compare with those of full-sized foreign cars? The BMW 740 sedan costs more than $15 per pound. The Mercedes-Benz 500 SL is priced at more than $22 per pound, and the Lexus LS 400 is now selling for more than $14 per pound. What about the Ferrari F40? It's $175 per pound. The estimated price per pound for most currently offered motor vehicles is provided in Appendix 2 of this book. Many affluent respondents take joy in driving vehicles that do not denote so-called high status. They are more interested in objective measures of value. Some millionaires do spend considerable dollars for top-of-the-line luxury automobiles. But they are in the minority. For instance, approximately 70,000 Mercedes were sold in this country last year. This translates into about 0.5% of the more than 14 million motor vehicles sold. At the same time, there were nearly 3.5 million millionaire households. What does this tell us? It suggests that the members of most wealthy households don't drive luxury imports. The fact is that 2 out of 3 purchasers or leasers of foreign luxury motor vehicles in this country are not millionaires. Domestic brands have long been in favor of older millionaires. We believe this attitude is becoming more common even among younger millionaires. Why? Because the real growth in the millionaire market continues to come from the entrepreneurial segment. Entrepreneurs, as a rule, are more price-sensitive than others when it comes to acquiring motor vehicles. Successful entrepreneurs judge each expenditure in terms of productivity. They often ask themselves the impact heavy spending for motor vehicles will have upon their business's bottom line and ultimately their wealth. More often than not, they determine that investments for such items as advertising and new equipment are much more productive than very expensive motor vehicles. What thought and behavioral processes do millionaires go through before buying a car? We have done extensive research on the various types of vehicle buyers that exist among the ranks of millionaires. It seems that rich people differ significantly even among themselves. Studying these various findings reveals valuable information about the attitudes and behaviors necessary to accumulate wealth. There are 4 distinct buyer types within the millionaire population. Underlying these 4 types are 2 fundamental factors. The first is dealer loyalty. Some buyers have a proclivity to patronize the same dealer over and over again. In other words, when dealer loyalists want to acquire a motor vehicle, they are inclined to work with the dealer who sold them their last vehicle, and a vehicle before that. About 45.7% of the affluent are dealer loyalists. All the other millionaires are shoppers. They account for 54.3% of the population. These people have no desire to patronize the same dealer. They are very aggressive, price-oriented buyers. Often they take months to make their price-related vehicle purchase. The second factor underlying buyer types is vehicle choice, new or used. Among the affluent, 63.4% prefer and buy new cars. The balance, 36.6%, have a very strong proclivity to purchase used vehicles only. Putting these 2 factors together produces 4 types of millionaire car buyers. Type 1, new vehicle-prone dealer loyalists, 28.6%. Type 2, new vehicle-prone dealer shoppers, 34.8%. Type 3, used vehicle-prone dealer loyalists, 17.1%. Type 4, used vehicle-prone shoppers, 19.5%. People with this orientation buy new vehicles only and have at least conditional loyalty to a dealer or set of dealers. Most affluent people have strong make/brand preferences concerning motor vehicles. So when they decide to buy a particular make of vehicle, loyalists already have a dealer in mind. They see certain benefits in buying new vehicles from the same dealers, but this doesn't mean they walk into their favorite dealership, lie down, and roll over. On the contrary, price even for them is an important consideration. Perhaps you think these dealer loyalists are lazy. Could they be members of the so-called idle rich? No, this is not the reason they patronize the same dealer again and again. Perhaps you might speculate that these buyers just like their dealer. Well, affection is not the answer either. Quite simply, new vehicle-prone dealer loyalists prefer to minimize their effort in choosing both a dealer and their type of vehicle, i.e., new versus used. New vehicle-prone loyalists put a tremendous amount of time and effort into generating their high incomes. They believe there is significantly more money to be gained from working than from going from dealer to dealer or looking for a real buy on a used vehicle. This group patronizes particular dealers because they also feel that these sellers give them the best packages overall. Some of the components of these packages go far beyond the price and physical dimensions of a motor vehicle. Why do these millionaires purchase new vehicles instead of used ones? Why are they less sensitive to the price variations of vehicles than are buyers of used cars? First, purchasers of new vehicles like new vehicles, although this is not the only reason they buy them. In their minds, buying new instead of used is much simpler, it requires less time and effort. To them, new vehicles are more reliable and more readily available in the models and colors and with the accessories they demand. In essence, they feel they must pay more to get more. Yet the price is somewhat important even for this group. Before they visit their favorite dealer, nearly half, 46%, determine the dealer's cost of a particular model. About 1 in 3 contacts at least 2 competing dealers to get some feel for the impending deal. Some study consumer magazines and other periodicals and price guides that reveal dealer cost figures. Location is another factor in understanding the behavior of this group. Many will contact dealers who are located outside their trade area, but most of these contacts are made merely to test local offers. Only about 1 in 10 patronizes out-of-town dealers repeatedly. There is another factor that explains the orientation of new vehicle-prone dealer loyalists. More than 1 in 5 patronize dealers who are their clients or customers. Networking is alive and well among the affluent in America. Much wealthy self-employed business owners believe strongly in reciprocity. Think for a moment. If you were a paving contractor, for example, where would you go to buy your vehicles? Would you buy from a stranger with a firm handshake, or from the automobile dealer who just gave you a contract to pave his parking lot? The answer should be obvious. Many loyalists who are self-employed professionals, such as physicians, attorneys, CPAs, financial planners, and architects, also believe in this kind of reciprocity. The more enlightened ones tend to patronize those vehicle dealers who patronize them. It is not at all unusual for the owner of a dealership to have more than 100 different suppliers who provide his business with products and services. Accordingly, there is some expectation on his part that these suppliers will return the favor. Many affluent dealer loyalists receive customer referrals from car dealers whom they patronize. In turn, 25.5% of the loyalists indicate that they refer their associates and friends to selected dealers. The dealers reciprocate by giving these buyers significant price discounts on their purchases. Many millionaires are dealer loyal for another reason. About 20% patronize dealerships that are owned by a relative or close personal friend. Many also prefer to deal directly with the owner of the dealership they patronize. 37% deal exclusively with the owners. Why? Because they believe this will assure them of getting an excellent overall package. The affluent with this orientation believe that the price discounts they get through aggressive shopping and negotiating with multiple dealers are more than worth the time and energy exerted. On average, they have spent about 9% less than new vehicle-prone dealer loyalists for the most expensive motor vehicle they ever purchased. On their most recent purchase, they paid about 14% less than loyalists. Loyalists tend to purchase somewhat more expensive cars, which accounts for about half the variation in the average prices paid by members of the two groups. In contrast, new vehicle-prone dealer shoppers are more sensitive to the price variations of competing dealers. Shoppers have typically experienced negotiators, many enjoy shopping and haggling. In contrast with dealer loyalists, dealer shoppers are significantly less likely to patronize dealerships owned by relatives or close personal friends, to refer others to dealers who reciprocate by giving them significant price discounts, to purchase exclusively from the owners of dealerships, or to buy from dealers who do business with them. On the other hand, they are much more likely to take weeks, even months, to shop around for the very best deal, demand a dealer cost or below-cost price, or purchase a new model that is heavily discounted and resell it within a year or two at nearly the same or higher price. If you dread the thought of shopping in person for your next motor vehicle, consider an alternative method. Mr. Mark Stewart is a friend of ours who has purchased many motor vehicles by visiting competing dealers. But he had never purchased a sports utility vehicle until this year. Although he lacked experience with buying this kind of vehicle, he thought of a way to avoid spending countless hours visiting competing dealers. Below is the fax that Mr. Stewart sent to the sales managers of 6 local areas Ford dealers. 3 sales managers responded immediately by faxing their very competitive bids to Mr. Stewart, who accepted one of these. It seems that his past experience as a procurement officer for the U.S. Army was useful in civilian life. Why do millionaires such as those in this group with annual incomes in excess of $300,000 and a net worth of nearly $4 million have to buy used vehicles? They don't. Overall, these millionaires get more satisfaction from acquiring used instead of new. In purchasing cars that are 2 or 3 years old, they feel that the original owner has paid while the vehicle was depreciating in value. They often plan to resell their used acquisition in 2 or 3 years and recoup much of their initial payout. Many also feel that aggressive bargain shopping for new vehicles is a waste of time and energy. They believe that new cars are overpriced at the manufacturer's or wholesale level. In their minds, one can't even hope to buy a new vehicle for much less than the dealer paid for it. For many, the real discounts on motor vehicles can be found in the used vehicle market. Used vehicle-prone dealer loyalists have the highest percentage of entrepreneurs among their ranks. Entrepreneurs are extremely price-sensitive when acquiring motor vehicles. Their preference to invest much of their income in assets that appreciate, however, must be balanced with the need of many successful entrepreneurs to drive quality motor vehicles. For this group, the acquisition of quality late-model used vehicles is the solution. Their favorite models include used Jeep Cherokees, Cadillac DeVille, Ford F-150 pickups and Explorers, Lincoln Town Cars, Chevrolet Caprices and Suburbans, and Infiniti Q4 SS. The members of this group spend less money on such acquisitions than do the members of either of the new vehicle-prone groups. The percentage of their incomes allocated for motor vehicle purchases is also the lowest of all the groups. On average, they spent only 7.6% of their income on their most recent acquisition and only 9.9% on their most expensive purchase. As a percentage of their net worth, these purchases represent only 0.68 and 0.89% of their net worth respectively. How do the members of this group make purchase and dealer patronage decisions? First, most determine the dealer cost on a new model of their preferred vehicle. Then they determine the vehicle's projected depreciation. This information is used to bolster their decision to purchase a used version of their chosen model. Information about the current retail and wholesale value of used vehicles is available at many libraries and bookstores. Often, enlightened CPAs provide this information to their clients. Used vehicle-prone dealer loyalists then examine the offerings of several dealers. This is done to judge the willingness of local area dealers to earn the business of the members of this group. Some check the prices of vehicles offered by individuals as listed in the classifieds. Often, they telephone those listing their vehicles and ask private party sellers if they would be willing to lower their asking price. In most cases, the callers are just conducting price sensitivity research. The used vehicle-prone dealer loyalist uses the information he gathered as a bargaining chip in negotiating with his chosen dealers. In most cases, the chosen dealer will meet or beat the prices offered by the so-called competition. Millionaires in this buyer group patronize the same dealers repeatedly. Buyers feel that repeat patronage can earn them a price and even service concessions, but this is not the only reason for their loyalty. Like many new vehicle-prone dealer loyalists, 36% of used vehicle-prone dealer loyalists told us that they buy used cars from dealers who do business with them. Many also patronize dealers who go out of their way to refer customers to them. Remember that this group contains a high concentration of entrepreneurs, self-employed professionals, and very successful sales and marketing types. Obviously, they believe in reciprocity. About 1 in 4 acquires his vehicle from relatives or close friends who are in the automotive industry. 1 in 3 used vehicle-prone dealer loyalists makes his purchase by negotiating exclusively with the owner of the dealership. 1 in 5 deals exclusively with the top sales professional at a chosen dealership. Such buyers feel that top sales professionals have great leverage in persuading sales managers to agree to sell at low prices. Used vehicle-prone shoppers, 19.5%. Those in this group are the most price-sensitive and the most aggressive bargain hunters of all those we have profiled. They spend less on average than do the members of any of the other groups. They paid an average of $22,500 for their most recent acquisition, under $30,000 for their most expensive. Their latest purchase represents less than 0.7% of their wealth, their most expensive acquisition, less than 0.9%. This group contains the smallest proportion who have clients, friends, or relatives in the automotive industry. Given that they don't have a friend in the automobile business, how do they go about finding a good deal? First and foremost, they don't buy new vehicles. Also, you will note that the title of this group, Used Vehicle-Prone Shoppers, does not contain the word dealer. These people buy their used vehicles from all types of seller. Most often they buy from private parties, but they often shop at dealerships, leasing companies, financial institutions, consignment companies, auction companies, and agents. Used vehicle-prone shoppers are extremely patient people. They are the most likely of all millionaire car buyers to take months to find the best overall deal. They never seem to be in a hurry to buy. In some ways, they are always looking for a deal. They are in a semi-searching buying state all the time. In one instance, a member of this group casually looked around for a deal on a late-model Chevrolet for more than 7 months. But unlike Dr. South from Chapter 3, this bargain shopper never spent a great deal of time making this acquisition. It seems that on his long commute to work, he routinely passed by 3 dealers. If he noticed a vehicle that caught his eye, he would contact the dealer by phone. At the same time, he would telephone sellers who had their vehicles listed in the classifieds. He eventually made a purchase from a private party at a price substantially lower than at any dealer he had contacted. He told the seller, "I am not in a hurry. Give me a call in a month or so and I'll make you an offer. But right now you're asking nearly as much as all the dealers I have been in contact with in the past few weeks." He tells the same thing to all the people he contacts. He also has a favorite time of the year to negotiate. He claims he is most successful in cutting deals from the last 2 weeks of December into February. During the winter season, he says, sellers don't find a lot of shoppers out and about. Christmas-related expenses and activities and the cold weather distract and discourage most potential buyers from shopping during this period. They do not discourage many used vehicle-prone shoppers. It is not at all unusual for buyers in this group to have 4 or more sellers competing simultaneously for their business during these months. The members of this group typically acquire low-mileage vehicles that are 2 to 4 years old. What buying habits reveal? One can learn a great deal about affluent people by analyzing their vehicle buying habits. For instance, note that most millionaires are dealer shoppers as opposed to dealer loyalists. Not by a large margin, 54.3 versus 45.7%, you may logically counter. But this margin is a bit misleading. Net out the percentage of dealer loyalists who are so inclined because they have strong reciprocal relationships with their favorite dealer. Factor out also those loyalists who patronize dealerships owned by relatives and close personal friends. Then ask about the percentages of loyalists versus shoppers. If you do, you will find that there are at least 2 shoppers for every loyalist among the ranks of American millionaires. What about vehicle purchasers in general? Most vehicle buyers are not wealthy. Thus, one might logically expect them to spend more time and energy shopping for the best deal. Our research shows the opposite. Those who are not wealthy are less likely to shop, haggle, and negotiate than those who are millionaires. Car buying behavior does indeed help explain why some people are wealthy while most are not and never will be. More aggressive bargain shoppers for motor vehicles also tend to bargain hunt for other consumer products. These people also tend to plan their expenditures. Given these findings, what buyer type of the 4 profiled above would you expect to be the most frugal in general? Have you guessed that it is the used vehicle-prone shoppers? Used vehicle-prone shoppers are the most aggressive and most price-sensitive when it comes to acquiring motor vehicles. They shop using a wide variety of sources. And, on average, they pay significantly less for their vehicles than do members of the other groups. Of all the types studied, used vehicle-prone shoppers are the most illuminating for those interested in studying the path to affluence. Why? Because of all the groups studied, its members have the highest ratio of net worth dollars for each dollar of income. For every $1 used vehicle-prone shoppers realize in income, they have $17.20 of net worth. They have the lowest average income of all the groups, yet, on average, they have been able to accumulate more than $3 million. How did they do it? Their wealth development strategy is worth detailing. Millionaires who are used vehicle-prone shoppers. What factors explain variations in wealth accumulation? Income is a factor. People with higher incomes are expected to have higher levels of wealth. But note again that members of this group of used vehicle buyers have a significantly lower income than the average for the other groups of millionaires. About 2/3 have incomes in the high 5 or low 6-figure range. Occupation is another factor. We have noted many times that entrepreneurs account for a disproportionately large share of the millionaires in America. Conversely, most of the other high-income producing occupations contain disproportionately smaller portions of high net worth types. These include physicians, corporate middle managers, executives, dentists, accountants, attorneys, engineers, architects, high-income producing civil servants, and professors. But there are exceptions. For example, each of these non-entrepreneurial occupations is represented in the used vehicle-prone shopper group we are profiling. Used vehicle-prone shoppers are unique even among their millionaire cohorts. Note that, on average, they have the highest score values on all 7 measures of frugality. Behind their frugal behavior is a strong set of beliefs. First, they believe in the benefits of being financially independent. Second, they believe that being frugal is the key to achieving independence. They inoculate themselves from heavy spending by constantly reminding themselves that many people who have high-status artifacts, such as expensive clothing, jewelry, cars, and pools, have little wealth. They often tell the same thing to their children. In one case we studied, a youngster had once asked his dad why their family didn't have a swimming pool. His dad answered with the big hat no cattle response that many frugal people articulate. He told his son that they could have a pool installed, but that a new pool would mean the family would not be able to send the son to Cornell. Today the son, Carl, is a Cornell graduate. No, his folks never had a swimming pool installed. What will happen when Carl's children ask about their father's proclivity to frugality? Will he be able to defend his purchasing orientation and his frugal nature in general? Used vehicle-prone shoppers are significantly more likely to report the following. My parents were very frugal. Once a member of the used vehicle-prone shopper group told us about his frugal habits. He explained that his parents were farmers. My family in Nebraska understood the value of $1. Dad used to say seeds are a lot like dollars. You can eat the seeds or sow them. But when you would see what seeds turned into, 10-foot-high corn, you don't want to waste them. Consume them or plant them. I always get a kick out of watching things grow. This man derived considerable enjoyment in his nondescript, 4-door, 3-year-old American-made sedan. He believed that his vehicle never revealed to the public that he was very affluent. Nor, according to him, would it ever encourage thieves to follow him home to burglarize his property. He often referred to his car as the last one that would ever be stolen out of the airport parking lot. Being frugal is a major reason members of the used vehicle-prone group are wealthy. Being frugal provides them with a dollar base to invest. In fact, they invest a significantly larger portion of their annual income than do any of the other types of vehicle buyers. This also applies to their contributions to pension annuity programs. As you may have already predicted, the used vehicle-prone shopper group also contains the highest percentage of prodigious accumulators of wealth. This group is significantly more likely to agree with this statement. Our household operates on a fairly well-thought-out annual budget. To budget properly, one must keep records of disbursements. Here again, the used vehicle-prone shopper is more fastidious than any of the other types. More of them agree that I know how much our family spends each year on food, clothing, and shelter. Used vehicle-prone shoppers are also bargain-oriented when it comes to buying clothing. Their score of 145 was the highest overall. A significantly higher percentage agreed with this statement. I never bought a suit that was not on sale, discounted. Used vehicle-prone shoppers are significantly more likely to be discount store patrons than other types of vehicle buyers. This is evident from their positive response to the following statement. I often buy my suits at factory outlets. In addition, they are significantly more frequent shoppers at Sears than any of the other types of millionaire vehicle buyers. This group, on average, spends considerably less on a variety of items. As discussed in Chapter 2, we asked all our millionaire respondents to tell us the most they ever paid for: 1. A wristwatch, 2. A suit of clothing, and 3. A pair of shoes. Once again, the used vehicle-prone shopper demonstrated his frugality. Members of this group spent only 59% as much as the other millionaires in our survey for a wristwatch, 83% on a suit, and 88% on a pair of shoes. The majority of people do not have the ability to increase their incomes significantly. Yet income is a positive correlate of wealth. What, then, is our message? If you cannot increase your compensation significantly, become wealthy some other way. Do it defensively. This is how most of the used vehicle-prone shoppers did it. They successfully inoculated themselves from contracting the high-consumption lifestyle that many of their neighbors adopted. More than 70% of their neighbors earn as much or more than they earn. But fewer than 50% of their neighbors have a net worth of $1 million or more. Most of these millionaires' high-income, low-net-worth neighbors make the wrong assumption. They assume that by focusing their energy on generating high incomes, they will automatically become affluent. They play excellent offense in this regard. Most are positioned in the top 3 or 4% or higher of the income distribution for all U.S. households. Most look the part of millionaires. Yet they are not wealthy. They play lousy defense. We have stated many times the belief of countless millionaires who have told us, "It's much easier in America to earn a lot than it is to accumulate wealth." Why is this the case? Because we are a consumption-oriented society. And the high-income producing non-millionaire neighbors of used vehicle-prone shoppers are among the most consumption-oriented people in America. Case studies. Mr. J. S., CPA, new vehicle-prone dealer loyalist. Mr. J. S. is one of 3 senior partners in a small but highly productive CPA firm. He is also a millionaire. Mr. J. S. enjoys buying new vehicles and is completely turned off by the idea of buying used cars. To him, owning a used vehicle is like wearing someone else's old clothes. Mr. J. S. is a dealer loyalist in part because his time is more valuable than shopping for a so-called big discount. In addition, Mr. J. S. buys from a dealer with whom he does business. Again, networking and reciprocity are major factors underlying the motor vehicle purchasing habits of many new vehicle-prone dealer loyalists. How did Mr. J. S. acquire the motor vehicle dealer as his accounting client? By referring more than a dozen of his clients to the owner of the dealership before ever selling the dealer any of his accounting services. Previously, the owner had dealt with another accounting firm for years before realizing that this accounting firm had never referred one of its clients to him. Now the dealer and Mr. J. S. have a strong reciprocal bond. One of the great advantages of being a self-employed business owner is the ability to leverage your organization's patronage habits. In the case of Mr. J. S., he also leverages his influence over several of his clients. He is the dealer opinion leader for many of his clients. Mr. J. S. makes it clear to each client he refers that the dealer is also a client. The dealer, in turn, is likely to give favorable service and price concessions to these clients. Over the past 10 years, Mr. J. S. has essentially sold more than 3 dozen motor vehicles for his client, the car dealer. At the same time, the dealer has expended many thousands of dollars for accounting services from Mr. J. S. Mr. T. F., stockbroker, used vehicle-prone dealer loyalist. Mr. T. F. is a stockbroker and a millionaire who enjoys purchasing late-model used luxury automobiles. After purchasing several models from the same dealer, Mr. T. F. had an idea. He would make a personal sales call to the owner of the dealership. Mr. T. F. first reminded the owner that he had purchased 3 cars from him in the past 5 years and had referred several of his clients to the dealer. Mr. T. F. then asked the dealer if he would reciprocate by giving him some of his investment business. The dealer's response was very frank. He told Mr. T. F. that he sold vehicles to dozens of stockbrokers and that he could not do business with all of them. Mr. T. F. understood the dealer's position. So he made a counter-proposal. He asked if the dealer would be so kind as to give him the names of his top 5 suppliers. Assume that you were asked to nominate the suppliers of the year in this state. Who would be on the top of your list? Who put the new roof on this place? Can I mention that you suggested I call him? The dealer did refer several of his key suppliers to Mr. T. F still buys his vehicles from this dealer and makes referrals on his behalf. In turn, the dealer refers business to Mr. T. F. Author Tom Stanley sells a car. Just before Christmas, I placed a classified ad in the local newspaper to sell my family's Acura Legend. Prior to doing so, I called our dealer. He advised me about the upper limit price I could anticipate receiving for the car, and that was the price that we advertised. I have always meticulously maintained our motor vehicles. Our Legend had nearly every conceivable option, including the so-called gold package. The car was always garaged. Our Acura dealer did all the prescribed maintenance and tune-up procedures. We even used Mobil 1 synthetic oil. The car had a good set of Michelin MX V4 tires with a few thousand miles on them. And, perhaps most important, we had purchased the car new. My classified ad outlined many of these characteristics. Allow me to profile some of the characters who took the time to stop by and look over our car. Shopper 1, a senior marketing officer, female. She arrived driving an Infiniti Q45. When I saw the car, I asked her why she was interested in a Legend, since her Q45 appeared to be nearly new. She told me that the Q45 was her husband's and that they had purchased it used nearly a year ago. In fact, she had just finished looking over previously owned Legends and Infinitis at several dealers. She made it very clear that her household had a used vehicle orientation. It was not particularly loyal to any make of automobile, but she and her husband did prefer a narrow set of vehicles. These included Acura Legends, Infiniti Q45s, and the Lexus 400 series. The day she visited me, she had taken the afternoon off from work. She had a map of the Atlanta area and had marked the location of selected dealers and the addresses of private sellers. In this way, she made it very clear to me that she was well aware of many compelling opportunities. It was obvious to me that this woman was very skilled in evaluating used cars. She immediately pointed to a small ding on the driver's door. She examined the interior, the engine compartment, and the car's sheet metal. Then she asked me why I had to sell the Legend. I responded by saying that my teenage children have an aversion to four-door sedans. To them, a Legend is well suited for middle-aged, unexciting people like their parents. They would much prefer even a well-used 4x4 sports utility vehicle or a sporty two-door number. She paused and reflected on my comments. Now that I think about it, I suspect she would have preferred another answer. She would have wanted me to say that I was selling the vehicle because of financial obligations. This would have put her in a much stronger bargaining position. Nonetheless, she attempted to negotiate a lower price. She asked, "What's the lowest you are willing to take for the car?" I responded by telling her, "If I don't sell it in 30 days, I will consider lowering the price." I then pointed to the portfolio in the front seat, which contained all the maintenance records, original window sticker, and so on. She turned around, got back in her husband's previously owned Q45, and left. I never heard from her again. I am convinced that she found exactly what she looking for, that is, a real deal on a late model, used vehicle from someone who was in a hurry to sell. Shopper 2, a vice president at a regional financial institution, male. You may find it particularly interesting to learn this fellow's specific job title. He was vice president of the motor vehicle leasing department. I guess you could say he had an excellent understanding of the true value of motor vehicles. He also understood the relative advantages of buying versus leasing. It seems that this expert on leasing new vehicles spends his time searching for deals on used ones. Shopper 2 was also looking for a real deal. He was interested in several makes of quality Japanese cars, but, like Shopper 1, had no great loyalty to any specific make. He spent a considerable amount of time going over the maintenance and other records for the Acura. Then he asked the same question Shopper 1 did, "Without you hitting me on the head, what is the least you would take for the Acura?" I gave him the same answer I'd given Shopper 1. He also left. I am still waiting for his call. Shopper 3, a wealthy former business owner, male. Shopper 3 was the most interesting of the people with whom I came into contact. When he called me, he mentioned that he was intending to drive his wife to a local shopping center. He asked about our location, which he found ideal relative to the shopping center. He and his wife arrived shortly after our phone conversation in a 5 Series BMW. The car looked like it had just come out of a showroom. So I asked him about his need to purchase the Acura. He informed me that the BMW was his wife's car. He then scrutinized the Acura from top to bottom. While he was doing so, I had an interesting conversation with his wife. She informed me that her husband had recently sold his share in a successful software operation. They were millionaires. Her husband still acted as a consultant to the organization, but now he had more time to do other things. She also told me that her husband had never purchased a new car in the 30 years that they had been married. Apparently, he is in a semi-constant search for real deals on automobiles. He is particularly prone to purchasing quality used Japanese and German vehicles. But he is absolutely never in a hurry to make such purchases. Like many people in the used vehicle-prone shopper group, he gets immense pleasure from finding good deals from private sellers with too much care, too little capital. I suspect that is why he spent time debriefing me. He asked me what I did for a living. He asked me how well my business was operating. Perhaps he had thought I was an out-of-work corporate executive. Why else would I be at home in the middle of the afternoon in my khaki pants and flannel shirt? I told him I was an author, working on book number 4. Then he inquired about how well my other books were selling. Great, I answered. He then frowned and asked the question of questions. Would you be interested in knocking $1,500 off the asking price? Again I responded, perhaps in 30 days if I don't sell it before then. I am still waiting to hear from him, too. He did seem impressed with the way I maintained automobiles, so just before he left, he asked if I intended to sell any of my other cars. He pointed to my high-performance Z28 Camaro. I had to turn him down on that offer. 2. Shopper 4, a school teacher, female. Isn't it interesting that a disproportionately high number of used car shoppers come from the ranks of teachers and professors? Shopper 4 called me late one Friday evening. When do weekend telephone rates go into effect? She had a battery of questions to ask me. After this intense debriefing, she informed me that she lived several hundred miles from Atlanta in a cotton country. She said she was in the process of calling many of the people who had listed Acura Legends in the Atlanta classifieds. She promised to get back in touch with me the following Wednesday. She kept her promise and asked if I could fax her evidence that there were no outstanding liens on the vehicle. She also asked if it would be possible to have a more detailed list of the car's accessories. I faxed her the title and a copy of the original window sticker, with prices and options. She then advised me that she planned to come to Atlanta that Friday and look at several vehicles that were for sale. She and her husband, a successful cotton farmer, arrived at our house on Friday. They were driving a late-model Nissan Maxima. The automobile appeared to be in excellent condition. Shopper 4 drove her husband and me around the community for about 20 minutes, test driving the Acura. During that time I had a chance to debrief them. Why did they drive all the way from the cotton country? Why were they interested in buying a used vehicle? Aren't farmers supposed to be frugal? It seems that this couple shops for a late model, quality, used Japanese vehicle every 2 or 3 years. They find the prices and availability significantly better in the big city. They are nearly 150 miles from the nearest Acura dealer. They buy cars like mine and resell them in 2 or 3 years in their rural community for close to what they paid for them. Shopper 4 and her husband convinced me that they were frugal. They arrived with a certified check in an amount that was $1,000 less than my asking price. The farmer, upon returning from the test drive, asked his wife, "Aren't you going to try to negotiate with this guy?" She, in turn, said, "This fellow doesn't need to sell this car. And it's in great condition." Her husband agreed. Thereupon, she handed me the certified check and 10 $100 bills. After all the papers were signed and the deal was complete, she told me that my car sold for at least $3,000 more at the dealer nearest her farm. I responded that her colleagues would likely be impressed with this car when she drove up to school on Monday. Her husband commented that the other teachers would really be impressed if they knew how little she had paid for it. One comment he made was of particular interest to me: "My wife works with a woman who drives a new, comparably equipped Mercedes-Benz. She leased it for 60 months, $600 per month. Do you know how much cotton you have to grow to make those payments?" A professor of thrift has UAWs for neighbors. How did Dr. Bill, an engineering professor who never had a total household income of more than $80,000, become a millionaire? He inherited nothing. He never won the lottery or hired an investment advisor who turned a few thousand of his dollars into a fortune. His success in accumulating wealth is based on living well below his means. This professor is a classic example of a used vehicle-prone shopper. But like most of those in this buyer group, he never neglected his family. He provided funds for his children's college tuitions in full and more. He and his family live in a fine home in an upper-middle-class neighborhood. In fact, about 80% of his group live in homes valued at $300,000 to $500,000. Dr. Bill's goal always was to become financially independent, but he never wanted to become an entrepreneur. Often, entrepreneurs become wealthy by taking substantial risks and by leveraging the labor and talent of dozens, even hundreds, of others. Dr. Bill was never cut out to be anything but a professor. He is not alone. Most people in this country are not the entrepreneurial type. But this does not mean that they can't become millionaires. People often confuse our message about the relationship between being wealthy and being an entrepreneur. We're not telling people to give up doing their own thing in medicine, law, accounting, and other occupations and join the ranks of the entrepreneurs in this country. Don't even consider such a change unless you really want to and are fully capable of succeeding. If you can generate a reasonably good income, say, twice the norm for households in America, or $65,000 to $70,000, then you may become wealthy one day if you follow the defensive strategy developed by millionaires who are used, vehicle-prone shoppers. Most of Dr. Bill's non-millionaire neighbors have no household budget. They do no consumption planning. As a result, they have no restrictions on their domestic expenditures except the upper limits of their income. Yet these are the very types who are prone to whisper criticisms about frugal neighbors such as Dr. Bill. Mr. Norman is an executive who lives in a $400,000 home in Dr. Bill's neighborhood. His household income last year was in excess of $150,000. But he has next to zero invested in anything other than home equity, motor vehicles, and a corporate pension plan. Mr. Norman's household has a net worth of under $200,000. Mr. Norman and his wife are each 50 years old. So are their neighbors, the used vehicle-prone shopper, Dr. Bill, and his wife. Bill earns only about half of what the Normans earn. But Bill's household has a net worth that is 9 times greater than the Normans'. Can this be possible? It's more than possible. It is probable and predictable. Great offense and poor defense translate into under-accumulation of wealth. But the Normans are not alone. There are many more under-accumulators in their neighborhood than there are prodigious accumulators like Dr. Bill and his family. UAWs like the Normans find it degrading to even think about shopping for a used car. To them, a used car is out of the question. Their neighbor, Dr. Bill, never felt degraded shopping for quality used cars. In fact, acquiring used cream puffs gives him great satisfaction. Over the years, he figures that he has saved enough buying used over new to completely fund one of his children's college and graduate school tuitions. Where did Dr. Bill buy his latest motor vehicle, a 3-year-old BMW 5 Series? From Gary, a high-income, hyper-consuming sales professional employed in the high-tech field. Gary buys only new foreign motor vehicles. If Gary is like most UAWs, he firmly believes that the buyer of his old 5 Series BMW is not as financially well off as he. This is one of the telltale symptoms of being a UAW. UAWs usually think they have more wealth than their neighbors. Many UAWs also believe that people drive the best they can afford. Think of this situation in another way. Gary, the under-accumulator of wealth, is subsidizing Dr. Bill's motor vehicle purchases. Gary takes the brunt of the 3-year depreciation and then transfers title of a fine automobile to Dr. Bill, the frugal millionaire. Also, since Gary is an employee, he cannot write off depreciation against his income tax liability. In addition, Gary has no friends, relatives, or clients in the motor vehicle business. He gets no tax write-offs, no super discounts from an uncle or aunt who owns a dealership, and no reciprocity from a client/customer who is in the automobile business. He consumes motor vehicles purely for pleasure. What should Gary, Mr. Norman, and others of the UAW variety know? That they spend more on motor vehicles than the typical American millionaire. Gary's earned income is equal to that of many millionaires, yet Gary isn't a millionaire. Perhaps he compensates for this through his heavy consumption of status products. Is he trying to emulate the driving and buying habits of the chairman of the company that employs him? But the chairman is a millionaire and owns equity in the corporation. Unlike Gary, he never purchased an expensive automobile until after he was wealthy. Instead, he put much of his income back into the company via stock purchases. In contrast, Gary makes his expensive purchases in anticipation of becoming wealthy. But that day is unlikely to ever arrive. This was Chapter 4. Please check the next Chapter 5, Economic Outpatient Care. Please don't forget to subscribe to our channel, and comment below which book should we read next. Thank you for your support and bye-bye now my lovely friends.